It feels like a dream come true. A $90 million inheritance and our own company, my sister-in-law exclaimed, her voice filled with genuine excitement. When the employees noticed Brianna celebrating my father's inheritance, they began to murmur among themselves. Everyone was thrilled, and she proudly added, "Please, quiet down. This is the moment my husband will inherit the company and $90 million. At this, one of the employees couldn't contain their laughter. "What's so funny?" Brianna snapped, annoyed. Meanwhile, my older brother, seated beside his bewildered wife, was reading through the will provided by the lawyer. His face grew pale as he read. "Take a look at this," he muttered to her in shock. As he showed her the will, she let out a scream. "My name is Chloe. I'm 29 years old and work for my father's business. When he was young, my father had the foresight to start a business from the ground up. It's since grown to a modest-sized enterprise with many employees. Of course, soon after launching the business, he incurred debt, and even as a small child, I could imagine how difficult it must have been for my father. Even after the company grew, I wanted to help my mother, who mostly did clerical back-office work. My parents encouraged me to attend college and pursue a career of my choosing, but my dream was to work for the company that my father had worked so hard to build. That was the first thing that came to mind when I was considering my career path after graduating from high school. Tate, a veteran employee, was the first person to mentor me when I joined my father's company. Tate patiently taught me the fundamentals of business without looking at me through the lens of being the president's daughter. I was able to learn more about the company thanks to Tate. On the other hand, my brother Camden, who's just 2 years older, went to college to study management. From a young age, he was proud to tell his college friends that his father was running a business and that he would eventually take over the business. Camden's friends would ask, "What are your plans after you graduate from college, Camden? Don't you have to look for work?" "I don't need to look for work," Camden would boast, "because I'll be working for my father's company. I'll eventually be the company's president, so I'll take my time gaining management experience until then." "So you're going to be the next president of the company?" one friend would ask enviously. "Then your life will be safe and secure. I'm jealous of you. Camden, you have a younger sister as well. Isn't there going to be a fight over who's the successor?" Another friend chimed in. "Younger sister, I do," Camden replied dismissively. "But she's a high school graduate and a simple person. That's something you say a lot. She appears to be doing some behind-the-scenes work for the company. If I become president, I'll keep her on as long as she listens to me." My brother was blowing money and fooling around under the guise of gaining experience as a business manager. He knew that if he behaved well, his friends would flock to him. There was no end to the number of women who wanted to date him because of his position as the company's next president. My brother chose the most flamboyant and attractive woman to marry. Brianna was her name. After a lavish wedding, my brother and Brianna went on a honeymoon abroad, built a mansion, and began their married life together. This was all done, according to him, to obtain the status of company president. Brianna appeared to be content with her life with Camden, who listened to her every wish and allowed her to enjoy all of life's luxuries. I'm sure she wouldn't be interested in a life like mine, one where I work alongside my mother as a humble backstage employee in my father's company. "Chloe, you don't really seem like the CEO's daughter, do you?" she would often sneer. "You don't come across as the company president's daughter." Brianna would look at me and laugh whenever we crossed paths at family gatherings. "I don't like to live a lavish lifestyle," I would reply politely. She would look at me as if I were a moron. "I feel sorry for you because you were born as the daughter of a company's president, but you have no idea how to spend money," she smirked disdainfully. "Oh, what?" I exclaimed. "You live at home with your parents and you have a lot of money, so you don't need to work so hard. Besides, with your title as president's daughter, shouldn't the men be flocking to you?" she continued teasing. My brother agreed, nodding in agreement. "I'm sure that's true. Chloe's always been very modest, so no one would imagine that her father is the president, and apparently, she treats the other employees normally. Come as a surprise, there are still many things I don't understand about my job," I admitted. "Many of my co-workers are better at their jobs than I am, so I can't act like a big shot." "That's why you're useless," my brother said, astounded. A boss should be able to stand tall so that he's not derided by his subordinates, such as his employees. Allow the other employees to handle the simple, tedious tasks. I suppose my father and I are the only bosses in this house, he concluded. You should not look down on your subordinates, no matter how powerful you are. My father too. I began to reply, but my brother cut me off, looking annoyed and upset. A logical woman is not well liked by men, he remarked. After my brother spoke up, Brianna followed. If you keep saying things like that, I'm sure you'll never get married. You should try to make yourself more appealing. Don't you agree, Camden? Yeah, well, when I become president, I might fire a humble employee like you, Camden added with a smirk. My brother and Brianna only said what they needed to say, and they quickly left. My mother, who'd remained silent during this interaction, consoled me after they had gone. You're doing an excellent job with the company, which greatly helps me and your father. Don't be concerned about what Camden says. She tried to calm me down. My father nodded, a stern expression on his face. My parents had previously expressed their displeasure with my brother's ideas to his face, but after that, my brother and Brianna became visibly upset and stopped visiting our house for over a month. Recalling the depressing atmosphere at the time, so I told my parents, Camden and Brianna are free to say whatever they want. It won't change anything. After that, Camden and Brianna continued to live their lives as they pleased, dining lavishly at high-end restaurants and vacationing at famous resorts. The purpose was to give the impression that Camden would someday be president of my father's corporation. My father was working hard to expand his business at that time, but one night at home, he complained of chest pain. I said, Dad, are you all right? Try and relax. I'll call an ambulance. While we waited, my father pointed to a drawer and told me he had a letter for me. I quickly took the letter from the drawer. I want you to read this. If anything happens to me, everything else is up to the lawyers, he said breathlessly before losing consciousness. Despite being rushed to the emergency room, he died without regaining consciousness. My brother and Brianna, who were away on a trip, were unable to be there for my father's death. They returned 2 days later, at the conclusion of my father's funeral. We're just glad we arrived on time. I never imagined my father would pass away while we were on vacation, Camden exclaimed. I was completely taken aback. My brother and Brianna arrived at the funeral without a care in the world, making no mention of the fact that my mother and I had been left to handle the arrangements. I asked my brother about it in private so that the employees present would not hear. Couldn't you have arrived home earlier? What? I couldn't because I'd already booked a return flight. My brother tried to justify himself, without apologizing, and then addressed the employees. Thank you all for your help, and please from now on leave it to me to take my father's place in an honorable manner. Brianna looked around at the employees, who had quieted down in response to my brother's words, and she said admiringly, That's exactly the kind of thing Camden would say. Look, everyone's speechless. You're all so impressed, right? It's only natural, given my dignity. My brother continued pridefully. Chloe, isn't the ceremony just about to start? Please hurry and show us the way. I was irritated by my brother's late appearance and his arrogance, but I led him, Brianna, and the employees to the meal ceremony party table. My brother continued to act arrogantly as we ate. Isn't the quality of this food questionable, Chloe? This will degrade our father's standing as president. Mother and I already discussed it, and we came to an agreement on the food. Besides, I don't want you telling me what to do, I retorted. This is why people have no idea what it means to be president, he stated, giving orders not only to me, but also to the other employees serving others. You're pointless. I rushed to stop him after hearing him order Tate, a veteran employee, to do his bidding. Oh, Camden, you're so bold. Don't be impolite to Tate, I said, trying to stop my arrogant brother. What? They're rude people. Why should I be humble in front of a mere employee? These guys ought to have more regard for me, the president, he replied indignantly. Brianna was also getting into the spirit of things and charged at me. That's right. Stop talking down to Camden, the company's president, Chloe. If you continue to disobey him, he'll fire you. He has the authority, she said angrily. A man appeared just as my brother and his wife were blustering on. Please, excuse my interruption. Your father asked me to look after his inheritance. He was the lawyer my father had retained while he was still alive. I suddenly remembered that shortly before his death, my father had told me he'd already arranged everything with a lawyer. It seemed he had been preparing for this moment years before his passing. At the mention of the inheritance, my brother and Brianna's eyes lit up. They eagerly welcomed the lawyer into the room, with Camden saying, "Thank you for coming. The sooner we finalize everything, the better. Come right in." As Camden discussed the details with the lawyer, he stopped suddenly, his face shifting as he choked out, "Wait, wasn't my father's inheritance supposed to be worth $90 million? Brianna's eyes widened with excitement. $90 million. That's a dream come true for us, having that much in our company. The employees started whispering among themselves, and Brianna addressed them proudly. "Quiet down, everyone. This is the moment Camden inherits the company and its $90 million fortune." But her words were met with uncontrollable laughter from one of the employees. Confused, Brianna looked on as my brother skimmed the will next to her. As he read, his face drained of color. "Brianna," he murmured, "according to the will, the entire company is to be passed to the eldest daughter, to Chloe." He stared at the will for some time and then began shouting, "This is not possible. This is incorrect." In a troubled tone, the lawyer said, "This is a legally enforceable will." My brother's voice became more and more choked. "What? I couldn't care less. How can Chloe become president instead of me? Perhaps Dad was simply getting old and senile." Yes, your father lacks sound judgment. A will made by a senile old man is null and void," my sister-in-law intervened. Hearing these words, I completely snapped. I couldn't let these two people insult my late father. I couldn't let anyone, even family members, bring down my father, who was a good man until the end. Enough! My brother Camden becoming president would be even more unthinkable in my opinion. I joined the conversation angrily. The words infuriated my brother. "Well, what? Are you trying to tell me that I'm unfit to be president?" I responded without hesitation. "You are correct. How can you be president of this company if you've never even helped it? Don't be a moron. Brianna and I even built a house fit for a president, and we went to great lengths to make me look the part," my brother retorted. "Do you mean building a mansion unsuitable for a man of your stature or eating at fancy restaurants? That's not good for business," I continued, giving Camden a disapproving look. "It's only money," he retorted defensively. "After all, didn't Father cover the majority of the costs for the new house and extravaganza?" I added. "How in the world would you know that?" my brother asked in surprise. "Just before he died, Dad left me a letter. In the letter, he detailed all the money he had spent on you and stated it would be given to you in a gift during his lifetime. As a result, your share of the estate is practically nothing," I responded. Brianna panicked when she heard this. "Wait a second, isn't this inheritance worth $90 million? Did we already spend that much? It's not fair that we got so little out of it." The employee, who had just burst out laughing, quickly approached Brianna and informed her, "The $90 million comes from the company, not from personal assets. I believe all the employees here are aware of this." "Money from the company?" Brianna uttered, puzzled. "Isn't that something that can be inherited?" "It is indeed, but the money from the company is not inheritance for the family, so I'm pretty sure my brother's share is negligible," I explained to her. She sighed, disappointed. "That breaks my heart. Oh no." My sister-in-law was completely taken aback, muttering, "The inheritance, $90 million. Just then my brother stood up as if he'd had an epiphany, and he yelled at the employees, "You want your company president to be a plain woman like Chloe? You must believe I'm more qualified to be president. I have the same amount of charisma as my father." Not one of his co-workers agreed with him. Tate then took the initiative, addressing my brother firmly. "Your predecessor, your father, was a charismatic man who founded the company during his lifetime. However, you and he are not the same person." My brother, clearly offended, exclaimed, "What?" Tate continued, "What you have is arrogance, looking down on us, not charisma." "Camden, you may be an employee of our company, but we, the employees, rarely see you at work." "That's because I don't have time to do any work for the company," he said defensively. "I was too busy networking with others. I couldn't have time to do work anyone could do. Tate sighed, replying, "You call going on trips and having fun at night networking? Isn't that enough?" He then addressed everyone. In that regard, Chloe worked hard every day to learn more about the company while performing her unobtrusive behind-the-scenes duties. "I sense the same sincerity in her as in your father. Chloe is the right fit for this position, according to all of us at the company," he concluded. The other employees nodded enthusiastically in response to his words. I was moved and responded, "Thank you very much. To be honest, I'm surprised by the suddenness of the news, but having witnessed my father's enthusiasm for the company firsthand, I care about it just as much as you do. I look forward to your continued assistance." The employees warmly applauded as I bowed deeply. Encouraged by the applause, I said firmly, "All of you here are important friends who have helped our business. Anyone who ignores them is unfit to be an employee, let alone the company's president. You can be fired by the president." My brother became irritated upon hearing this. "What in the world are you on about? I'm your brother. What exactly are you on about? You even said that if you became president, you would fire me, brother," I replied sharply. "Oh," he uttered sheepishly. "I can't afford to pay a salary to an incompetent employee simply because he's family," I added. My brother's face contorted with disbelief. "This is completely absurd. Someone, please speak up," he called out, looking around with a pitiful expression, practically begging for support. But the employees only returned cold stares. Realizing that no one was on his side, my brother and Brianna fled the scene. After that, Camden lost his job and survived on the small inheritance he had received, but the funds quickly ran out. One day he approached me asking, "Can you lend me money, Chloe?" I shot him a cold glare, bringing him down instantly. I was disgusted by my brother who, even after being fired, did not try to find a new job and was still relying on his family to help him. I told my mother flatly, "Do not give my brother any money." His friends, who had once been so supportive, abandoned him after learning that he had lost his position as president to his sister. When Brianna married my brother, she had been planning to be the wife of the company president, and not a single one of her friends seemed to sympathize with her. When their living expenses became unsustainable, my brother and his wife decided to sell their mansion. The money from selling their house may have allowed my brother and his wife to relax and resume their previous lifestyle. However, without any income, my brother and his wife's savings quickly ran out. When they had nothing left to sell, they could no longer pay their living expenses. When they finally decided to give up and work, no one would hire them because they had never worked a day in their lives. Camden was eventually able to find a part-time job at a convenience store. Now he is working there, unfamiliar with the duties, and has been told that his work isn't adequate by other part-time employees, who are much younger than he is. Brianna, too, can no longer be a full-time housewife as she used to be. She has joined the part-time housewives she used to mock, now working as a cashier at a supermarket from morning to night for a low monthly salary. I, on the other hand, am using what I've learned from my behind-the-scenes work to help the company. Tate and the other employees have been working with me, and the company has been steadily growing. My brother's case may have actually strengthened employee unity. I vowed to continue working with my mother to grow the business in order to bring more joy to my father in heaven.